All right, folks, welcome to the Counter Media Podcast. Man, it's back to be back. It's back to be. It's great to be back. From Scott Show. Tomorrow night, folks, we're going to be doing Summer and I at a minimum will be on the Dangerous Liberty podcast tomorrow night at 7 p.m. We'll be recapping SHOT Show and everything there. So everything we saw there, everything we did there, and answer all your questions. We also got a lot more media coming from that. But, man, we have a lot to cover. Me and Chris were talking. By the way, welcome, Chris, my co-host from 15 hours in the future, coming all the way from Australia. Good to be back on with you as well, Chris.
Yeah, good to be back with you and the good people in the chat. Just reporting that Wednesday is going to be a good one. That's the future.
So what?
Bit of a future prediction for you guys. Wednesday's looking good.
What has Trump done in the next 15 hours that we need to know?
Oh, you won't believe it. There's too much to cover. Another 100 executive orders. I think half of the, maybe another 10 million illegals have all been deported.
They just drove them off into the ocean. I like it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just keeps the winning continues. I'm starting to get a bit sick of it by Wednesday. So, see how you go tomorrow.
I mean, all joking aside, look, one of the things, I was so busy, really prior to SHOT Show, all during SHOT Show, man, it was like 18-hour days all day, crazy. I didn't even look at media, looked at nothing. But what I did see from time to time, just checking the news and things like that, all the things that Trump is actually, he is executing at full steam, everything that he said it was. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know about you guys out there, but it really does restore my faith in this country and what we're able to do. What he did with Colombia after they said, no, we're not going to let your planes land here. And then they backed down within a couple hours. I mean, man, it really does. It's great to see America, and it's tangible. Like, you see it, you feel it. It is a completely different country right now, and I think most of us out there, it just feels great. Does Trump being in office make you feel glad? Does it make Australia feel better as well?
Oh, I can't speak for the whole country, but yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I imagine, a lot of people that are, at least slightly right wing or whatever, would just be loving it. Seems like Trump's, for the most part, really
it's just
making some massive changes and keeping busy.
It's not right wing or left wing. It's reasonable people against freaking idiots. While we got everybody here, this is a live show. So number one, welcome. Make sure you like, subscribe, all those things. If you're watching this in the future, make sure that you're joining us when we have this live so you can join in the conversation. That's what this podcast is all about. We're going to read your comments. We're going to take your questions. But I do want to say hi to John Rollins, Steve Canty, who said he hit the like button twice. Thanks, Steve. We always appreciate that. Harold Shepard, Jason TG, sponsor, Metal Seer, Robert Cochran. Who else we got over here? We got, scrolling down here, Wyatt Darrell, William Gittins, Tommy Hager. I saw Michael Hanna over there as well. And, of course, our Lost Boys at Rumble. I always tell you guys I'm going to switch over there and check, but I get busy and I forget because I got to do it on my phone. But we appreciate everybody watching, whether you're watching here on YouTube, Rumble, X, or Facebook. So loved having you guys here. Anyways, we got a lot to cover. One thing that I will tell you, just taking a brief break, kind of detoxing from social media and media in general, for the last week or so, man, things has just been happening at a rapid rate, and trying to keep up with it has been nuts. Luckily, Chris, you've been keeping tabs for me, right?
Not exactly. It's been a little bit too much for me to keep up with as well, and we sort of had the little bit of a break in momentum in the stream, so I sort of lost a bit of my sort of research groove. But we're coming back to it. But yeah, I've been sort of keeping tabs over the last week.
And I spent most of today trying to catch up with what's going on. And I think, again, we're getting ready to play you in just a few minutes. We're going to play the first press briefing by the newest press secretary, which that thing, I was going through that, and she just hit so much. We're going to play that and kind of react to it in real time as we play that. Well, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. The first thing that I want to throw up here or just discuss, and I'll throw up some additional documents kind of reinforcing some of these things. But I got a summarized article from CNN. And the gaslighting, the lying, the misinformation just doesn't end with these people. One of the big victories this week was the fact that Jim Acosta apparently is getting moved. He's going to be even less relevant than he was before. God, I can't stand that guy. But anyways, this article I thought was hilarious. I've summarized as much as I can, but from CNN, the Trump administration's immigration sweeps that include more than 2,000 arrests in 2 days and have chilled many immigrant communities were allowed by another blitz, a barrage of video and photos from federal government showing agents in tactical gear, vests emblazoned with police, ICE, Homeland Security, taking cuffed suspects away. The made-for-TV look of the arrest is not a coincidence, folks. As if when they don't do any sort of raids that they don't have, tactical gear on and vests and things that say, identify them as ICE, Homeland Security, etc. At least two of the agencies assisting U.S. immigration officials with the sweeps ordered by the fledgling Republican White House have told personnel to ensure their clothing clearly depicts their respective agency. And guess what? That is just a professional. That's just what you do as a professional law enforcement agent, especially a federal agent. The fact that
it's a funny thing to complain about. Yeah,
it is absolutely insane. It just shows you how dumb and silly and political and, partisan they actually are. Democratic U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, I love Dick Durbin, of Illinois, said his offices would help anyone who was improperly arrested. Because I want you to see the narrative that they're forming here, and you guys will pick up on this in a second, but we can all agree that we must remove dangerous individuals who are here illegally. Durbin wrote in a post on X, but the actions being taken by the Trump admin go way beyond these goals. In addition to Chicago, immigration actions were reported in California, Texas, Georgia, Ohio, Michigan, Colorado, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, according to Homeland Security and Drug Enforcement Administration. We're prioritizing criminal aliens, Homan told CNN on Sunday, but added there's going to be a point where we have to open the aperture for fugitives.
I was watching that debate. I think that was the interview with that Caitlin Collins, that Holman. He just crushes at every interview that he does. They try everything, and he's just not fazed.
Not even a little bit.
He reframes everything the proper way after they've tried to frame it as if, can't remember the exact specifics, but, they'll try and frame it a certain way, but he'll put it back and like, well, they're here illegally. It is a crime. They always like undocumented instead of illegal.
They want to try to frame it as, hey, you're removing innocent people. No, they're here illegally. They have broken a federal law by being here illegally. Now, should we prioritize, just for resources' sake, going after the most violent criminals? Absolutely. That's just common sense. But guess what? If in that sweep you find 10, 15, 20 other people that are they're not guilty of anything other than being here illegally, guess what? They still need to be deported, because that's what we are, as we are a nation of laws. And I love how they're playing this game. When you go to a home and you've identified one of your primary target where one of your primary target lives, oftentimes you'll find not only the undocumented immigrant living in the home, they might have family members who are undocumented, Sandwig said. And this is Sandwig, former acting director of ICE under the Obama administration, John Sandwig. And he also says the new policy, more collateral arrests are being made. And what they're basically saying is that anybody that is not a criminal, a violent criminal, if you're getting arrested because you're here illegally, now you're a collateral arrest. In the Biden administration or Obama administration, you don't take those people into custody unless they also pose a threat to public safety. And this has been the problem with the entire Biden presidency as well as the Obama presidency, is that they weren't enforcing the laws. They weren't enforcing immigration. We know what it's about. It's about getting people in here, getting them on the dole, giving them all of the different social net goodies that they're going to receive, and they're going to become lifelong Democrats. That's what it's about. But one point I do want to make here, and they go on and talk about some other things here, and this is the thing that really bugs me, is they go on and complain about what the Trump administration is doing, but It says about 11 million undocumented immigrants live in the United States, according to the Pew Research. Now, I remember back in the early 2000s, the only one that was really talking about immigration back in the early to mid 2000s was Rush Limbaugh. And he was always bringing up that number and the fact that that number was likely bogus, because that number went back from the early 2000s. And
yeah, it never changes.
It never ever changes. And as a matter of fact, I want to show you guys real quick. So this is what we have here. Make sure I share this real fast. So this is from unauthorized immigrant population in the United States from 1990 to 2022. So going all the way back to 2006, we had about 11 million immigrants. Now we go all the way over here, and somehow between 2006, with an unprecedented number of aliens coming across the border, and the problem is that both Republicans and Democrats enjoyed or thought that illegal immigration was a net benefit to this country. I think we all agree for the most part that it's not, and they've been talking about the immigration issue for a really long time, and just nothing more than platitudes. But somehow, in over these 10 years, even with the amount of immigrants coming across the border that's estimated, and I believe this is utter nonsense too, 8 to 10 million under the Biden administration, somehow we get less. We're at 10.99, right at 11 million, down from 11.7, and we have a high of 11.78. This is the high back in 2007. That is utter nonsense. Nobody out there with two brain cells that can rub together inside their head would believe that we somehow had less immigrants, illegal immigrants in this country over that period of time. And the fact that they would even put this out and think they're credible. And what even goes crazier than this, and by the way, I personally think I've done a lot of just looking at different numbers that they're putting out there. I think the number is closer to like 30, possibly even up to 50 million illegal immigrants within this country. I really do think it's at least that high, because we have no idea all the immigrants that they're coming across the country throughout the years over this. And even during the Biden administration, they say, if they're telling us it's 8 to 10 million, it's probably closer to 20 million that actually came underneath them. And that's probably not including the gotaways, the ones that they never detected to begin with. The border was pretty much open during the Biden administration. So the number of actual immigrants that came through that border that are still here in this country are probably close to the 20 million mark on top of what we already had. And by the way, Yale and MIT, and this is in 2018, then they were saying 22 million, not 11 million. So we know we're being lied to time and time again. And another thing that kind of enforces this, if we look at the American Immigration Council, they put out this article in the last few days. Well, this came from October 2nd. And they were talking about how mass deportation, essentially, how bad it would hurt America. And they go through and they try to monetize and quantify this and all this other stuff, regardless of that. But look at this. Given that in the modern immigration enforcement area in the United States has never deported more than 500,000 immigrants per year, and many of those have been migrants apprehended trying to enter the U.S., not just already living here. So we've never deported more than 500,000 a year. So we have been running a net gain probably in the millions throughout the year, and somehow over 10, 15-year period, we're still at 11 million. It is absolute crazy, and the Republicans and the Democrats, as well as the media, are responsible for, carrying that lie on and just continuing with it, because it's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I basically agree with pretty much all of that. They're definitely lying about it. And yeah, a lot of gaslighting too. A lot of the American people would be against this massive amount of immigration, but they were sort of lied to about the real situation, and people that want to do something about it are slandered. We elect Trump. Trump gets called all kinds of names, and every time he tries to make some moves to do something on this, he's made out like he's a monster, and think of the children, and you get all this kind of propaganda. The problem's definitely a lot bigger than they let on. There does seem powerful people on both sides seem to be happy with the status quo, as you sort of said.
Well, you know,
So it's
I'm
quite tough
curious,
to do anything about it.
in Australia, I mean, you're probably the most insulated country in the world. It's harder to immigrate there illegally or immigrate there to get there, period, than just about any other place out there. What is it like with the illegal immigrant, and how does the country itself approach illegal immigration there in Australia?
I'm not exactly 100% sure. Yeah, we do have. I remember years ago we used to have some boats that were coming in. It's obviously a lot harder to come in.
Right.
And we had the government, I guess the sort of conservative government, just started turning the boats back around. They'd intercept them, turn them back around, and send them to wherever they were coming from. And that was sort of painted as very inhumane for the migrants, I suppose.
Yeah.
That is, I haven't fully looked into it, but I think that stopped. But you know,
I mean,
almost stopped
you
a lot
guys-
of illegal immigration.
You know, because let's be real, there's a large part of your government that is very liberal, right? And a large part of the population.
Yeah. And
But-
besides
but
the
they don't
illegal
have, like,
immigration,
but they don't have like a super liberal. They're not calling for additional illegal immigration. I've never seen that.
no. But there is a lot of legal immigration, which is probably way too much. That might be another issue. Because even here, I mean, this might be a bit of a side note or whatever, but I remember I saw some footage from New Year's Eve in Melbourne, you know, just recently.
There's
And I don't know if anyone else has seen that footage.
It's Melbourne.
It's Melbourne, okay? Just like you say New Orleans, despite the spelling of the L, E. You know, you got to incorporate the local culture and how we say it. We say Melbourne, just like
Okay.
B-I-N. That's just
B-I-N.
how it's done, all right? Even though it's not spelled that way. All right, but yeah, and just this video went for 8 minutes. It's just sitting on there. And honestly, like, I know this, I hate to be that guy, but there weren't many white people there. It was just like for just 10 minutes of just, yeah, all be legal immigration, but like so many. It was quite eye-opening to me because, you know, I don't know, maybe I don't get out enough or something, but you just seeing this footage, it's like, yeah, that's probably a bit too much. I mean, we probably should do something about it, but there's just no real climate for people to be free to do that here, similar to America. But yeah, illegal immigration isn't so much of a problem. It's more we might have too much illegal immigration, but that's just because we're insulated, I suppose, as you said. We don't
And
need
the
to build a
other
wall.
thing,
We got the water.
nobody really wants to go to Australia. That's the other problem. Part of that.
Well, it's not true. I mean, people are just flocking to come to this paradise.
Yeah.
Some say it's the best country on earth, actually.
I don't know who. I do have a quick video that kind of has a good synopsis of what's going on with this, because some of the other, if you look through and you're searching mass deportation, we'll talk about some of the other things that Trump has been able to accomplish just in the first, week, which is it's just been a whirlwind, and it's been pretty phenomenal what he's done so far, whether it's, giving a pardon to the January 6th, all the January 6th protesters. I refuse to say the other word. That's been a crazy, and I didn't expect that. I thought he would be a little more conservative on it, and I'm so glad.
Yeah, same.
Because I think he's like, F it, man. You know what? We can't win no matter what. And there was a part of Trump, and I think one of his biggest failures in the last administration was trying to appease the left, and he never got it, and he never will get it. But anyways, let's play this video real quick, and then I'm sure you got some stuff that you'd like to share as well. But I think this is a good synopsis of the immigration situation as we see it right now.
The Department of Homeland Security says more than 7,000 criminal migrants have now been arrested in President Trump's first week of office. As Rebecca Castor reports, the focus now turns to another major city.
In New York City, a massive federal operation is underway to get criminal illegal migrants off the streets as part of President Trump's nationwide crackdown.
We're tracking down the illegal alien criminals. We're detaining them, and we are throwing them the hell out of our country. We have no apologies, and we're moving forward very fast.
Leading the charge Tuesday is newly confirmed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
Hey, can I just say, like, how awesome it is to see Kristi Noem there on the ground during these raids. Her and Tom Homan, by the way. Like, you would never see that with Mayorkas or anybody else. Number one, they wouldn't do any raids. They're going to let gangs just take over, apartment complexes in major portions of the city, unopposed. But to see her out,
I think hasn't
is really cool.
that apartment that went that went viral a while ago, getting taken over. Didn't I read that the leader of that gang got arrested just the other day?
Yes, Trinagagwa.
Christy Nome. She posted this video on X of ICE agents arresting a man who they say is a violent criminal with kidnapping and assault charges.
Right now, we're concentrating on public safety threats and national security threats. Anybody in the country illegally, they're on the table, but we're going to go after them in a prioritization that makes sense. The worst first.
Meanwhile, at the southern border, illegal crossings have plummeted. With multiple sources telling Fox News, Border Patrol recorded less than 600 illegal crossings on Sunday. At the height of the border crisis in 2023, daily crossings were over 5,000.
It's the difference between night and day. I don't remember a day, in my 26-year career as a Border Patrol agent that we had that few apprehensions.
The ramped up enforcement making life more difficult for the cartels. Several Border Patrol agents were shot at in South Texas on Monday, with the cartel members seeking refuge on an island between the U.S. and Mexico. Fortunately, none of those Texas Border Patrol agents were injured.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're out there kicking ass, taking names, and just moving people left and right. And one of the things I was talking about earlier was the fact that if you search through, they're basically calling all of these raids a failure. Like, if you go through CNN, MSNBC, all of the usual suspects, they're basically saying how ineffective they are, that they're mostly just getting nonviolent illegal immigrants, which is kind of the narrative that they're trying to push with all this.
Yeah, and it was interesting on that Caitlin Collins interview with Holman, is it? He was saying, he says, look, we're going after the ones that have committed extra crimes since they came here first. And then, as he says, then we'll keep opening the aperture, as he says.
Yep.
And then the next step would be immigrants, I don't fully understand it, but immigrants, I guess, that have gone to a court and they've been told to leave or something, or they've been, they've got some kind of court order that they're not following. They're the next people to go. And then he keeps saying, and then we keep opening it up more. We might get more and more broad.
It'll be funny when we actually show the press conference. But that's what they're going after. Is like, well, they've arrested other illegal immigrants as well. Like you're catching. Like, no, when you go after big fish, you catch small fish too. And guess what? All the fish are going into the belly of the boat. That's just what's happening. And
and Holman even said that. He said we're going after the ones that have committed crimes. We got criminals and pedophiles and all kinds of stuff. We're going after them. But if we're there, if ICE is there and they see other illegal immigrants, they're not going to turn, he said something like, they're not going to turn a blind eye to that. They're going to do their job. And if you're in the country illegally, it's their job to remove you. And Caitlin Collins is like, oh, but what about the chilling effect? And he's basically like, well, it's good. You should be concerned if you're here illegally. If I was in Switzerland illegally, I would be concerned about getting kicked out because I'm not meant to be there. So he just handles it very well, as opposed to I forget who you were reading before, talking about the Biden approach. They're like, oh, if we see, illegal immigrants who haven't committed extra crimes since they've been here, they basically will turn a blind eye to it, I guess.
No,
because they try to make out that that's not a crime to come here illegally or whatever.
Yeah, they want to act like it's, and then they're like, oh, they're like, it's just a civil offense. No, it's a federal crime to break into this country illegally. Stephen, this is a great point and something that I think is overlooked. There's been many legislation passed where, the premise for it was essentially, hey, we're going to have a border wall and we're going to have additional security. Like, hey, it's going to be too costly to get rid of the illegal immigrants within the country. That was sold to us. I don't agree with that. But that's what was sold. And hey, we're going to have a border wall. We're going to have stronger security, but we're going to give amnesty to the people that are here. Fine. And then we get the amnesty pushed. That happens. We get a lot more illegal immigrants and we never get a border wall. We never have. And hopefully that's going to end. And that's a great point.
Yeah, it seems like, I think I might have mentioned before, the American people don't have an option to vote for less immigration, it seems. Or it's just like not allowed. And this might be a bit of a stretch, but generally Americans, going back decades, will vote for the candidate that's sort of anti-war, yet pretty much most presidents will go to war. I know that's a different issue, but I think it's the same kind of thing of just people don't get what they want. The system is there to sort of make sure they can keep doing whatever they want. Democracy be damned.
I mean, that was the entire thing that Obama ran on. Like, that's why he got elected, in 2008.
And got the
he was completely anti-war, and yet all we did was find ourselves in more and more wars. Like we went from not only we pulled out of Iraq irresponsibly for a minute, and then we had to go back into Iraq. I saw that, folks. Some of the interpreters that I worked with, the Iraqi special operations teams that I worked with, like those guys were texting me. I was in Iraq from 08 to 09. I came back. All these guys, great guys that I worked with that, you know, would have taken a bullet for every American soldier that they worked with, were now texting me and messaging me on Facebook and everywhere else. Said, Gary, we got to get out of here. Like they're going around, they're killing all of us. And we just left them. And then we ended up having to go back from the surge, which, by the way, I'll share a picture sometime. I have an entire special operations Iraqi team that we worked with for training some of the other Iraqi forces, our partner forces, and all of those guys, I think, except for one, there was like 15 of them. All of them are dead now. And they died during that period. And, we just left them out to hang. That's what Obama did. Then we had to go back and do the surge and all that other stuff. And by then, ISIS was around. Look what that's morphed into. I mean, every time that the Democrats have been in power, and don't get me wrong, the Republicans are guilty of this too. They've bungled a lot of stuff. The point is we've had an omni party that is pro-war or just pro-stupidity. And it was never about necessarily even getting out of Iraq. We were just moving these resources elsewhere. And
there's plenty of drone bombings in Yemen got picked up under Obama, and Pakistan, and maybe Somalia, and more countries than I even really remember. And of course he was sort of there during the Ukraine coup, which led to all this. And
Obama droning,
funding jihadis in Syria. That was his deal,
without due process.
Sorry, what was that? Without due process?
I said Obama droning U.S. citizens without due process.
Yeah, there were those two. Yeah, father and son, I think. I mean, I'm sure they were bad guys or whatever, but yeah, American citizens.
100%.
Especially the son, yeah. Alawaki, I forget his name.
Yep.
But, yeah, it seems the establishment's pro-war and pro-immigration. Illegal immigration as well.
100%.
So, yeah, Trump has a bit of anti-war, anti-immigration stuff to him. I think that's a big part of why they see him as such a threat. I might share a little video. I don't know if you've seen this. This is Jake Tapper and was it Stephen Miller, this guy?
I can't. No, but I'm waiting here with bated breath.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. The usual Jake Tapper. Oh, but what about they're going to have, but how will America survive without illegal immigrants, basically? And this angle is I don't know if it's who will pick the crops or who will do some kind of farming or something.
Fast, yeah. AI.
How do I? Yeah. Stephen Miller says something about, eventually we'll have automation.
No question about, because one of the reasons that President Trump got elected, according to President Trump in an interview, I think it was with Kristen Welker of NBC, was because of grocery prices. Not the only reason, but a reason, high prices, inflation, especially at the grocery. The Department of Agriculture says that between 2020 and 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So how does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, you're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden floods. Mm-hmm. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this. I'm explaining to you and your audience.
I don't have I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you can come back and we can talk about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They're in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws, and as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
So,
you know, and the thing that boggles my mind is they talk out of both sides of their ass, right? So, you know, at one moment, they want to say, well, you know, the illegal immigrant population is 11 million people, which represents less than 3% of our total population. But somehow that 3%, when they're defending them, suddenly like 80% of our daily lives are reliant on this supposed 3% or so of this illegal immigrant population. Basically, once we get rid of that 3%, our lives are going to grind to a halt. Everything's going to go up in price. All this other stuff's going on. Like, you can't have it both ways. And I think most of us agree. Like, you go to any major city, you see large populations of illegal immigrants clearly doing the jobs, being exploited, by the way, by construction, by whatever, restaurant, whatever it is. Like, they're getting paid a lower wage for, you know, something that Americans obviously can do. And you know, it just boggles my mind how they argue out of both sides of their face with that.
Yeah, and I love how that, was it Miller? He responded to Jake Tapper's concerns by basically saying, well, I'm sure you're not arguing that we should rely on the exploited labor of illegal immigrants to do it, which is what Jake Tapper was saying. But the way he framed it, he's like, he made it sound, you know, maybe a bit more ridiculous. He's like, surely you're not saying this. So it's just a nice little, at the opening, he just sort of smacked away his point as being kind of ridiculous. And yeah, and now what? Jake Tapper's concerned about inflation, is he? Price of groceries now? I'm sure he didn't worry too much about the last few years
at all in the last few years. He just talked about how rosy the economy actually was, and that, you know, everybody that's complaining about gas prices and grocery prices were, you know, right-wing extremists that don't know what they're talking about. When we're going in there and we're paying 3 times the price for milk, eggs, regular food, and fuel prices are up, you know, more than double. I mean, it's like this. I don't even know how they can sit there with a straight face. And the problem is, I know how, because the problem is most of America are stupid, and they believe that, or a large portion of the of America is stupid, and they believe whatever comes out of these idiots' mouths. And it's crazy to me. They have zero critical thinking skills whatsoever. Let's jump in, unless you got something else. Let's go ahead and throw up and just kind of start talking about and breaking down this press conference, because I think it does really summarize everything that the president has done in a really, I mean, this lady's on fire. She is extremely articulate and extremely good. So we'll play this and go from there.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists.
Are you guys not getting sound from her?
From our homeland,
I think it might be a little low. There are a few different versions of that. If it is a problem, we can maybe switch to another one.
On day 1, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration. Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finished construction of his effective border wall. By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration. And this president expects that every nation on this planet will cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, upon hearing they were denied a U.S. military aircraft full of their own citizens who were deported by this administration. Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving America is once again respected.
I'll stop it right there. I thought it was hilarious at how the media was reacting when Trump started threatening tariffs on Colombia. And, they were like, oh, he's causing chaos. He's causing this. He's doing this. This is not how you do things, blah, 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 blah. And like within a couple hours, Colombia completely folded. And that's the problem that we've had in America for the last, really, we can go back 50 years. We have the absolute power, but we walk around like an impotent douche. Like we pretend like we're the weakest kid on the block, and we let smaller countries bully and push us around. And it's like we have all the buttons. All right, we got all the widgets here, and we control everything here, but we haven't used those powers because we have too many politicians that are too generous with our money and are willing to, go out and try to make friends with, the leaders of Britain or the UN or whatever other powers that be, using our money to buy that friendship or whatever it is, or just to find great. I don't know. I don't even understand it all. Ultimately, you can come to no other conclusion other than that, we have leaders in America that hate this country and want to see it weakened. That is the ultimate goal. There's no other way around it. From militarily, economically, we've had leaders that have been intentionally destroying this country. And I don't care what you come up with, as far as the reason behind it all. But the fact is, that's what they've been doing
on the world stage. So, to foreign nationals who are thinking about trying to illegally enter the United States, think again. Under this president, you will be detained and you will be deported. Every day, Americans are safer because of the violent criminals that President Trump's administration is removing from our communities.
If you want to make more money in 2025, don't start a business. Try this instead. There's a little known trend.
On January 23rd, ICE New York arrested a Turkish national for entry without inspection who is a known or suspected terrorist. On January 23rd, ICE San Francisco arrested a citizen of Mexico unlawfully present in the United States who has been convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child aged 14 years or younger. ICE St. Paul has arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor. ICE Buffalo arrested a citizen of Ecuador who has been convicted of rape. ICE Boston arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who has a criminal conviction for second-degree murder. This criminal was convicted of murder for beating his pregnant wife to death in front of her 5-year-old son. And ICE St. Paul also arrested a citizen of Mexico who was convicted of possessing pornographic material of a minor on a work computer. These are the heinous individuals that this administration is removing from American communities every single day, and to the brave state and local law enforcement officers, CBP, and ICE agents who are helping in the facilitation of this deportation operation, President Trump has your back, and he is grateful for your hard work. On the economic front, President Trump took immediate action to lower costs for families who are suffering from 4 long years of the Biden administration's destructive and inflationary policies. President Trump ordered the heads of all executive departments and agencies to help deliver emergency price relief to the American people, untangle our economy from Biden's regulatory constraints, and end the reckless war on American energy. President Trump also signed sweeping executive orders to end the weaponization of government and restore common sense to the federal bureaucracy. He directed all federal agencies to terminate illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to help return America to a merit-based society. President Trump also signed an executive order declaring it is now the policy of the federal government that there are only two sexes, male and female. Sanity has been restored.
Oh, science, bro.
Before I take your questions, I would like to point out to all of you once again have access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. There has never been a president who communicates with the American people and the American press corps as openly and authentically as the 45th and now 47th president of the United States. This past week, President Trump has held multiple news conferences, gaggled on Air Force One multiple times, and sat down for a 2-part interview on Fox News, which aired last week. As Politico summed it up best, Trump is everywhere again. And that's because President Trump has a great story to tell about the legendary American revival that is well underway. And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets. It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. To do this, I'm excited to announce the following changes will be made to this historic James S. Brady briefing room, where Mr. Brady's legacy will endure. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists.
You should apply for credentials or whatever.
I'm going to.
Drive to DC.
Content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media.
Yeah.
Throw out the white bread and eat the brown rice. That's the best way to lose weight and reduce inflammation and lower your blood sugar.
Starting today.
And it's a bit louder too, my version.
Play it. We're at
to meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. Pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House. To meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no. Well, I did watch this earlier, and I watched a couple, kind of rolled it back a couple times. The only thing she's saying is that the FAA, that whoever was flying these drones had permission from the FAA to fly those drones. Not once did she say where those drones were from or what they were or anything else. So I do think that there was a little bit of wordsmithing or careful. She was very careful about what she said and what the White House released on that. So, it could still very well be a government program or whatever else. Because if the reports, and I do think there are credible reports saying that they were able to manage their heat signature, that is on a level that we don't really know about, right? So at a minimum, I think at least some of those drones were provide whatever explanation you have for that.
I might have misheard. I thought, can I play that again? I thought she said some of them were government and some of them were hobbyists. I might have misheard.
The United States, this was not.
What I'm saying is that it's not an explanation.
Oh, yeah. Did she say?
A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to individuals that in many of these drones were also hobbyists. Certain large numbers were, after research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones.
For some reason, I thought, yeah. It's not really much of an explanation.
If you go with that as a default response to me, you'll be fine.
It won't be default. It's the exception.
This was not the enemy.
So
a statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart. Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you very much. Caroline, does the president see anything fishy about DeepSeek, either its origins or its cost? And could China's ability to make these models quicker, cheaper, affect our thinking about expanding generation data centers chip manufacturing?
Sure. The president.
So that was a whole other thing with the DeepSeek. You know, China released that open source AI, apparently wiped out the market of NVIDIA because they can apparently do it better and cheaper or something. I haven't fully looked into all that, but I guess that's the question about
the
that.
Chinese AI,
yeah, DeepSeek. I think Trump even commented on it and said it should, it could be a good thing. It could get American companies to try and do better or something.
Yeah, apparently they're doing a lot more with a lot less. I mean, they're basically outperforming Meta. They're outperforming ChatGPT and some of these other big AI platforms with I don't know, I think they said they put like $7 billion into it, when each of the large tech companies have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on their own AI. And you know, DeepSeek apparently is outperforming them with cheaper chips and a lot less overall cost. I mean, that's kind of the beginning end of what I really understand about DeepSeek. And it's also becoming, it's going to outpace the downloads and the use of an AI platform compared to ChatGPT. What is Meta? I think Llama, that's an open source one, and then a couple other ones out there.
Yeah, I think already, or at one point it was more downloaded as an app than ChatGPT and a few other things. Yeah, so I think that perception of them doing more for less is what affected the stock market. But some people dispute that because people are saying maybe they're sort of fudging the numbers and they probably do have more equipment and they probably have spent more money than they are letting on. And maybe there's some kind of restrictions from America. They can't have certain
video
cards or something.
Yeah, if it's Chinese originated, like they're spending billions and billions of dollars on AI, and they can pretend otherwise. Like that, I think that's part of the Chinese strategy. They always are pretending that they're better at strategy, period, than the United States and keeping things close to their chest. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah, they've read The Art of War or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess this question's about that.
The president was asked about DeepSeek last night on Air Force One when he gaggled for, I think, the third or fourth time throughout the weekend with members of the traveling press corps. The president said that he believes that this is a wake-up call to the American AI industry. The last administration sat on their hands and allowed China to rapidly develop this AI program. And so President Trump believes in restoring American AI dominance. And that's why he took very strong executive action this past week to sign executive orders to roll back some of the onerous regulations on the AI industry. And President Trump has also proudly appointed the first AI and crypto czar at this White House, David Sachs, whom I spoke with yesterday, very knowledgeable on this subject, and his team is here working every single day to ensure American AI dominance. As for the national security implications, I spoke with NSC this morning. They are looking into what those may be, and when I have an update, I will share it with you, Mike.
Carolyn, you say restore U.S. dominance. Is there fear that the U.S. either is fallen or has fallen behind And how would the president make sure the U.S. stays ahead?
No, the president is confident that we will restore American dominance in AI.
Yeah, so Caroline, first off, thank you to you and President Trump for actually giving voices to new media outlets that represent millions and millions of Americans. The thing I would add, I've got a two-part question for you. The first is just can you expand upon what steps the White House is going to take to bring more voices, not less, which is what our founder, Andrew Breitbart, believed in, into this room where they rightfully belong?
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said in my opening statement, Matt, it is a priority of this White House to honor the First Amendment. And it is a fact that Americans are consuming their news media from various different platforms, especially young people. And as the youngest press secretary in history, thanks to President Trump, I take great pride in opening up this room to new media voices to share the president's message with as many Americans as possible. In doing so, number one, we will ensure that outlets like yours, Axios and Breitbart, which are widely respected and viewed outlets, have an actual seat in this room every day. We also, again, encourage anybody in this country, whether you are a TikTok content creator, a blogger, a podcaster, if you are producing legitimate news content, no matter the medium, you will be allowed to apply for press credentials to this White House. And as I said earlier, our new media website is whitehouse.gov/new media. And so we encourage people to apply. Again, as long as you are creating news-related content of the day and you're a legitimate independent journalist, you're welcome to cover this White House.
And secondly, Caroline, you said you laid out several of the actions that President Trump has taken. Obviously, it's a stark contrast to the previous administration of breakneck speed from President Trump. Can we expect that pace to continue as the first 100 days moves along here and beyond that?
Absolutely. There's no doubt President Trump has always been the hardest working man in politics. I think that's been proven over the past week. This president has again signed more than 300 executive orders. He's taken historic action. I gaggled aboard Air Force One to mark the first 100 days of this administration, 4 p.m. last Friday, or first 100 hours rather. And this president did more in the first 100 hours than the previous president did in the first 100 days. So President Trump, I think you can all expect for him to continue to work at this breakneck speed. So I hope you're all ready to work very hard. I know that we are. Zeke Miller.
Thanks, Caroline. A question that we've asked your predecessors of both parties in this job. When you're up here in this briefing room speaking to the American public, do you view yourself and your role as speaking on, advocating on behalf of the president or providing the unvarnished truth that is, not to lie, not to obfuscate to the American people?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job. And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people. And that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up truth, Zeke, I would like to point out, while I vow to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So, yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
Just on a substantive question, yesterday, the White House Office of Management and Budget directed across the board freeze with some exceptions for individual assistance, we understand, to federal grants. It's caused a lot of confusion around the country among Head Start providers, among providers services to homeless veterans, Medicaid providers, states saying they're having trouble accessing the portal. Could you help us clear up some of the confusion?
Yes. We'll touch on this again. I think a judge has since put a stop to these federal loan stoppages. I've got something for that later. We'll come back.
Federal funding programs?
Yeah, because, Trump, he did some kind of foreign aid freeze, I think, except for Israel and Egypt. And he also did these some kind of domestic funding freezes as well. But a judge has put a hold on that or something.
Yeah, the AP is reporting federal judge temporarily blocks Trump administration freeze on federal grants and loans. Federal judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked a push from President Donald Trump to pause federal funding while his administration conducts an across-the-board ideological review to uproot progressive initiatives. The order capped the most chaotic day for the U.S. government since Trump returned to office, with uncertainty over a crucial financial lifeline causing panic and confusion among states, schools, organizations that rely on trillions of dollars from Washington so they can waste the crap out of it. My word's not there. But yeah, looks like it is currently blocked. I'm sure we'll see I'm sure it's going to be appealed, and we'll see where that goes tomorrow. But it is from U.S. District Judge Lauren Alicon, which they don't, usually when they have these articles, it always talks about who appointed that judge. And this one doesn't say that in this. So I think it's probably a Biden or Obama appointed judge. I'm sure another article. But yeah, looks like it's in the middle of a stay.
Yeah. So that's very recent because this briefing we're watching is only a couple of hours old, I think.
Yeah.
Give some certainty to folks. And also, how does that uncertainty service the president's voters?
Well, I think there's only uncertainty in this room amongst the media. There's no uncertainty in this building. So let me provide the certainty and the clarity that all of you need. This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. Individual assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. And I want to make that very clear to any Americans who are watching at home who may be a little bit confused about some of the media reporting. This administration, if you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that. However, it is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is something that President Trump campaigned on. That's why he has launched DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, who is working alongside OMB. And that's why OMB sent out this memo last night, because the president signed an executive order directing OMB to do just this. And the reason for this is to ensure that every penny that is going out the door is not conflicting with the executive orders and actions that this president has taken. So what does this pause mean? It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for the Green New scam that has cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies. No more funding for Green New Deal social engineering policies. Again, people who are receiving individual assistance, you will continue to receive that. And President Trump is looking out for you by issuing this pause because he is being a good steward of your taxpayer dollars.
Thanks, Caroline.
Sure.
Just quickly, I might share. Sorry.
Going off the rails on us. A couple of things. One of the things I was just talking to my wife today about, here in West Virginia, talking about wasteful spending specifically, and this is something that has got to get under control. And I think most reasonable Americans out there agree with this. But for instance, here in West Virginia, the students in West Virginia are rated like 48th or 49th in the nation, and in this county alone, we spend around $19,000 per student in West Virginia to get some of the poorest results ever. Could you imagine if we had the money to put $19,000 to pay for a kid to go to a private school for $19,000 a year? That's what they're paying here in West Virginia. It's absolutely insane. And I mean, the problem is we as Americans, and especially our government, the only solution to every problem they have is to throw more money at it, have the same incompetent people in charge, and getting the exact same results. You get the exact same bad results. It just costs you more and more money, and that's what we've become accustomed to. And our federal budget could be a third of what it is, and we'd get more and better results. And we'd be able to pay like half the taxes that we do right now. But we have a government that is out of control, both at the federal, state, and local level. All they do is waste everybody's money that we work to death paying for. And then we pay taxes on the income that we get. We pay taxes on our investments. We pay taxes on the property that we paid for using the money that we already paid taxes on. And then, God forbid if you got, where you die, now you're paying on taxes on all the stuff that you pay taxes on again. Like, we pay so many taxes in this country. It's absolutely insane. And they don't give a crap about what they do with our money. And I'm fed up with it. By God.
Yeah, I hear. Reminds me of, I haven't seen all the details of this, but Trump's sending out sort of a lot of emails to federal workers. I don't know exactly what this group is, or the exact circumstances, but I guess there was some, federal workers. I think this is related to, they have to come back into work.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of them were working from home still, and they all, at least in this case, they all had the option to resign.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something. Where is it? Can't find the bit I was looking for, but basically they got an email and it basically said, if you want to resign, just reply resign in the reply email. So it's basically, it seems like he's really cleaning house. He's going to really change the situations for federal workers and give a lot of them the incentive to leave if they're not happy with it. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't find the bit that it's related to this. But,
and you know what? I'm perfectly fine with. I actually have it right here, Chris. It's in your. Go to your X messages. You can pull it
I
up there.
did post it before.
And I'm absolutely okay if that's what it takes to right this ship. And it's been talked about. I think Vivek Ramaswamy talked about this, but if we have to pay some of these people 2 years worth of salary to get out of here, and just give them a very generous severance package to get out of the federal government and go do something else, I'm fine with that. Let's greatly reduce the workforce because nothing gets done on the federal level. It's abject waste, fraud, and abuse. And we got to get this under control or we're going to lose this country. And this administration is really our only chance that we know for sure that we could possibly get some of these things done.
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, it said that workers who wish to resign must type the word resign in the body of this email and hit send. So I just thought that was funny. It's just kind of like, all right,
and this just
we're in charge now.
How we know how dumb government workers actually are. It says type the word resign and then make sure you hit send. You got to give them instructions to actually send the freaking email because they're retarded. And we're paying these retarded people to waste our money and to fill offices and chairs and take up resources that shouldn't be there to begin with.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that. Hit, and it's in apostrophe or whatever it is, send. It's SEND. Look for those 4 letters. That's what you have to click. So, yeah. The other thing, of course, in the press briefer, she mentioned something about, tying in with the DEI and the gender thing. I don't think she mentioned it in the presser. Well, maybe it comes up later. Another executive order is to curtail gender transition for people under 19.
Yeah, it comes in later.
And actually, I meant to share this one. There it is. There's the actual thing. And apparently, I haven't gone through all of it, but apparently it's quite harsh. Like it's got a lot of teeth to it. This thing. I'll have to look into that later. Sorry.
You're saying that Trump's executive order has a lot of teeth to it?
Yeah, this one, because I read somewhere else that I can't find it all handy at the moment, but it really changes things, and it might even make a lot of punishments for doctors. Don't quote me on this because I haven't got it all there, but it just seems. I'll come back to that one. I had something saved which sort of has some details about how.
Well, I think we all need to be ready. Because about half of these executive orders are going to be challenged in court, and they're going to get challenged in court, and we're going to be going through that process. That's fine. Just freaking, I love the fact that he passed. He did so many executive orders. Hopefully, most of which are undoing, and I know they are. Most of which are undoing the hundreds of executive orders that were signed the first few days of the Biden administration, which just needed to happen. From energy to everything else they've done to damage this country. It's going to be a long road back. There's no doubt about it. But at least they're making headway in they're creating a momentum that he needed, and to show the American people hey, we're doing work here. in this administration and this, this term of office. So I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no one can deny he's getting busy. He's doing a lot of work. I mean, I imagine some people won't like the work or whatever, but even they'll have to admit he's working hard. And he's doing things that he sort of said he would do, which is pretty good. 100%. Before I put this back on, I made 2 notes from things before. Oh, they mentioned Dodge. Apparently that Vivek Ramaswamy, he's left. I don't know the details of that. Yeah. He was asked if Elon fired him. He said, no, we're on good terms, but I might be running for governor somewhere maybe.
Yeah, I read that happened right as I was leaving for SHOT Show. He was going to do something else that sounded good, but that's fine.
Yeah, maybe running for governor, I think it was, somewhere.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And just another comment earlier, I think from Metal CEO, was talking about this is going back a little while, forgive me, the DeepSeek thing. Apparently there's sort of a conspiracy theory out there about someone that got assassinated. I haven't looked into this.
I haven't looked into that either, but I'm seeing it all over Twitter, and I'm seeing it in the comments, and I did see some pictures of, anyways, we'll have to look up, what's his name? George, everybody mentioned
George Webb. Yeah. He's not the most credible person, but he's talking about, was it Satya? Someone got killed. Apparently was about to expose something. That's the theory. I haven't looked into it. Maybe it's nothing, but
maybe that'll be Thursday's show.
Possibly. Unless, but I imagine Trump will probably have another few hundred executive orders to go through as well. But yeah, let's get back to lady with the hair.
How long is this pause going to last, and how is the Trump administration recommending that organizations that rely on federal funding make payroll, pay their rent in the meantime? It is a temporary pause, and the Office of Management and Budget is reviewing the federal funding that has been going out the door. Again, not for individual assistance, but for all of these other programs that I mentioned. I also spoke with the incoming director of OMB this morning, and he told me to tell all of you that the line to his office is open for other federal government agencies across the board, and if they feel that programs are necessary and in line with the president's agenda, then the Office of Management and Budget will review those policies. I think this is a very responsible measure. Again, the past 4 years, we've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors. It's a big reason we've had an inflation crisis in this country, and it's incumbent upon this administration to make sure, again, that every penny is being accounted for honestly. Why impose this pause with so...
Just briefly, I saw this. I think this is true. Is it? Have you read this one?
She's going to bring it up here in just a minute. It's absolutely true.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, Gaza's not that big of a place. 50 million for condoms. It's like 100,000 condoms for every person. Like I don't know how many condoms. First of all, now I just got to do this. Let's look up the population of Gaza.
Population. It's like 2 million.
Gaza.
It's like 2 million, I think.
2.1
well, maybe less now.
Million. 2.1 million. All right. If you pay $1 a condom, all right, you're looking at what, like 25 condoms per person, something like that. I don't think they need that. That's for every kid, woman, child, man, everybody. The dogs are going to be covered in condoms. The pets are going to be like, it's absolutely insane that someone would look at a line item and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because there was like 50 officials that had approved that before it ever got put into an actual budget. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. $50 million for condoms. Get the insanity.
Yeah, it reminds me. I think Rand Paul did a couple of things a couple of years ago where he's like, look, we spend $100 million to research why.
He does that every year.
Yeah, he's great, Rand Paul, but
yeah,
so much waste. And yeah, I mean, condoms, I haven't heard the cries from Gaza, like, we need condoms. Where are the condoms? We're calling out to the UN. We need the condom. Like,
they really are the key to peace and goodwill on earth.
It's funny because they do have a lot of children in Gaza. I just wonder if this is just like trying.
I don't think
limit that or something. I'm not sure.
That is money laundering at its worst, right there. You can just look at that and like, come on, who's getting this money? They're going to turn these condoms into missiles. That's what's going to happen, or whatever else.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out Nancy Pelosi owns a bunch of condom companies, perhaps, or something like that.
Got off strings right here. I wasn't factoring. Yeah, there's that. Oh, play me some more Caroline here.
So little notice. Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they are about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time?
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know, a regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. You know, just during this pause, DOJ and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
And so this doesn't affect Meals on Wheels or Head Start or disaster aid?
Again, it does not affect individual assistance that's going to Americans.
To follow up on Nancy, do you think there will be a list of who is affected and how much money is affected? How will these contractors and organizations know if they are actually having their funding frozen? And then secondly, if you're willing, can you just clarify, is the end goal of this to essentially challenge Congress or to prove that the president can withhold federal funding? In other words, is this an attempt to pick a fight to prove that he can do this?
No, absolutely not. As it says right here in the memo, which I have, and I'd encourage all of you to read it, it says the American people elected President Trump to be the president of the United States and gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal dollar. This memo requires federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements. The American people gave President Trump an overwhelming mandate on November 5th, and he's just trying to ensure that the tax money going out the door in this very bankrupt city actually aligns with the will and the priorities of the American people.
So will there be a line?
Yes. Welcome. You look great. You're doing a great job. You talked about transparency, and some of us in this room know how just transparent President Trump has been the last 5 or 6 years. I think you'll do the same. My question is, do you think this latest incident with the president of Colombia is indicative of the global, powerful respect they have for President Trump moving forward, not only to engage in economic diplomacy with these countries, but also world peace?
Absolutely. I'll echo the answer that the president gave on Air Force One last night when he was asked a very similar question by one of your colleagues in the media. This signifies peace through strength is back. And this president will not tolerate illegal immigration into America's interior. And he expects every nation on this planet, again, to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens who illegally entered into our country and broke America's laws. Won't be tolerated. And as you saw, the Colombian government quickly folded and agreed to all of President Trump's demands. Flights are underway once again.
2 questions on
Just quickly, I just saw an update about the federal employees said, Trump administration offers 2 million federal workers payouts to resign. And that's the thing that I mentioned before, where they could type in the word resign and make sure they hit that send button. They have until February 6th to accept the offer.
Well, I want to go back. I want to go back to the condoms because that's what's really important here. So Fedor says, I don't know how he knows this, but you can get a box of condoms for $60. It's 1,000 of them FDA approved. I imagine if you were buying $50 million worth, you can get them for a discount of $50 per box. Folks, that's 1 billion condoms. That's what you could buy with that based on this information right here. And that's over 500 condoms per man, woman, child, and dog, cat in Gaza. That's what we're getting ready to spend $50 million on. I want that. That's what Democrats do with our money, and it's absolutely insane.
I first saw that, I thought that was like a joke, like a Babylon Bee article or something, but no, it's apparently true.
the Biden administration itself was the Babylon Bee.
Okay, what else we got?
Deportations, if I may. President Trump had said on the campaign trail that he would deport pro-Hamas students who are here on visas. And on his first day in office, he signed an executive order that said, quote, the U.S. must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the U.S. do not bear hostile attitudes towards its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. So should we take this executive order as Trump saying he would be open to deporting those students who are here on visas but, hold pro-Hamas sympathies?
The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation's immigration laws. So if they are here illegally, then certainly he is open to deporting them. And that's what this administration is hard at work at doing. We receive data from DHS and from ICE every single day. From what we hear on the ground, ICE agents are feeling incredibly empowered right now because they actually have a leader in this building who is supporting them in doing their jobs that they were hired to do, which is to detain, arrest, and deport illegal criminals who have invaded our nation's borders over the past 4 years. That's what the president is committed to seeing. Peter.
Very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump, during the course of the campaign in 2020.
Hey. Say something?
Yeah, no, they go nuts over this. This is where they play the games with trying to pretend that illegal immigrants aren't criminals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I remember, I might play later. You know that clip, I think it's a couple of years old, of AOC trying to grill Holman about, well, it's legal to seek asylum. And he's like, well, no, you've broken whatever, this law section.
Like, according to
the other.
ABC, you were it was a federal offense to break into this country. Yeah. Coming to this country. He tears up every dumb Democrat, and I repeat myself. He tears up every Democrat that comes across to him. Like he just dismantles them with actual facts, law, and it's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I enjoy. Sorry,
24 said the following.
I haven't seen.
About
I only saw the
illegal
first 10 minutes of this, I think.
Immigration. He said they're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants.
Did I see that apparently under Biden there was still about 300 per day average deportations anyway? So even though Trump is ramping up, it's not heaps more than Biden did, and apparently Obama did a lot as well. I don't know.
Talking about arrests?
What his average?
I
deportations, I think.
No. First of all, the deportations were way down. I mean, the problem is the percentage, right? So when you have 50 times the amount, which was like what we're talking about, you might still be deporting 300. I think the real numbers was they averaged around 300 per day illegal immigrants arrested. And I literally had it up and I closed it because we kind of moved on. But it was like 300 illegal immigrants a day that were arrested in the United States for deportation. But the problem is when you have 10 times the amount and that number stays the same, from a percentage standpoint, the ratio is crazy, because now you have 10 or 15 up to, like, I forgot what the most was, but we were averaging like 10,000 people coming across, and that's the ones that we knew about, like 10,000 people coming across our border every day illegally. And when you're still at 300 a day that you're possibly arresting and deporting, and chances are a lot of those people just got re-released. I really do believe that. I guarantee that's what happened, especially with all the crazy immigration judges they put in place. Like, you have to be the worst of the worst to even get arrested, and then a percentage of those are going to end up going free as well, just because they're so ideologically driven and they have no common sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's just going to be very interesting to watch how this all plays out, and watch all the right people get upset and try and cry about the law being enforced.
Yeah. Well, and one of them. No, just play it. We'll talk more about that later.
No prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president?
Well, that's something. Not necessarily try and dismiss that. Besides entering the country illegally, but let's not worry about that. They haven't done anything else, so why would we want to do anything about it? They like to skip that part.
They do.
Or excuse that part of no, they're not illegal. They're just undocumented, and nobody is illegal. And
they completely ignore that part intentionally.
Yeah,
as if we don't.
And always on the news, it's undocumented.
Well, she calls them out on this right here, and it's hilarious to watch. Yeah.
I should probably leave it to her. She's probably better at handling this than me.
President still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, not a
civil.
It's not criminal.
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking though. He said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal...
I mean, just what a scumbag to be so, intellectually dishonest there. And again, there's
playing dumb.
Well, the problem is they're playing dumb for their constituents that are sitting here that buy into this. Like, no, he's not a criminal. No, they are a criminal. Anybody that ignores our laws, you as an American citizen, go enter another country illegally and see what the F happens to you. Like, you will be, depending on the country or whatever else is going on, I mean, you'll be in prison really quick. The consequences can be absolutely insane in some of these countries for sure. But like the fact that we are going to pretend that we don't have borders, we don't have immigration laws, and we're not going to enforce them. And then these clowns are on here advocating for not enforcing them. It's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling because here's the thing. You don't know who's coming in illegally until they commit a crime, till they murder somebody, till we have, God only knows how many terrorists we have running around this country. We literally don't know. Like, folks, I hope you are out there carrying your guns on you. I hope you are out. I really do think, look, we know there's lots of good intel. I believe her name's Sarah Adams. She's been on the Sean Ryan show, and many other folks have been talking about how many terrorist organizations and terrorist operatives have been coming into this country over the last 4 years. And I think something like this is a crackdown could potentially be the catalyst for something larger. But the other part of this, though, is the one thing I do like about this, because there's always that risk, but the reality too is when you have a federal government that's going after illegal immigrants in the way that this government is, it's going to put them on the defensive. It gives them less ability to plan and operate in the open. And again, it's harder to plan operations when you got all these federal agencies looking for you, an illegal immigrant, and it's going to disrupt. It'll help mitigate the chances of an attack, and on top of that, if there is an attack, it will greatly mitigate the scale of that attack because we now have a federal government and an immigration force that is on the offensive, taking care of these people.
Yeah, like that Holman, he keeps saying, after he argues everything else, he also says, if you're an illegal alien, don't wait for us to come to you. You should probably start leaving on your own. So I think the self-deportations would be a big part of it as well.
It's happening. I was reading an article today that's talking about that. There's people leaving right now. Now we have less. We had like one of those. Well, the video that I showed earlier had the former immigration agent talking about. We've never seen these numbers as low as they are ever, and that's what we're going to continue to see the rest of this administration. So hopefully that goes into the next term or the next administration, whoever, and hopefully that's J.D. Vance and somebody else.
Yeah, so more are leaving by themselves. It seems like less are coming, and this would be because of this approach. And when they like to complain about, but what about the TV style? And you're making sure they wear their uniforms, and you're making it very publicized. And this helps. This helps all of that. It means less people will come, more people will want to leave, so they don't want to have to go through that process of getting sort of rounded up and shipped out or whatever.
Well, and one of the titles, or one of the titles to the headline to this was Trump's brutal immigration policy or brutal deportations. That's what it was. The other thing that it does is it shows that it's not. Like, you show these immigration officers doing these raids, and handling these people very gently, treating them with respect. They had Dr. Phil on there. He's like talking to one guy right out in the open, and come to find out the guy is a legal immigrant from Thailand who's also a sex offender that's still in this country, that has been convicted of sex crimes with a minor here in this country and is still in this country. But that's what the Biden administration has done. And let's, they haven't been deporting anybody. And the crazy thing about the last 4 years, and really even going back further, but the last 4 years especially, is if you were an illegal immigrant, it actually made you a protected class under that administration. Not only were they not getting in trouble, were they not getting deported, like they were just letting them go and giving them slaps on the wrist or no punishment whatsoever. And that's the crazy part of it all.
Yeah, and a lot of sort of left-wing influencers or whatever, like one of the Krasensteins, for example, he's sharing that, you might have seen that pamphlet, how to like not get arrested by ICE. Yeah. All these basically tips to people who aren't supposed to be here. Make sure you don't answer the door. Make sure you don't do this.
100%. What's worse than that is we literally have Department of State funded and sanctioned, NGOs in South America, in Mexico, that are doing the exact same thing. They're giving them phones, they're giving them instructions, they're coaching them on what to say when they get to the border, and that is Biden's freaking Department of State doing that. They've created the rule book and coaching these people of telling them exactly what they need to say when they get to the border so that they can come in here. And that's another problem. We're talking about illegal immigration to some extent, but we're also talking about legalized illegal immigration, because most of these people a large portion of these people are coming in quote unquote legally and through the One Pass or the whatever app. But a lot of these people there's millions and millions of people that come into this country quote unquote legally, but under false justification, because they've been coached or they're taking advantage of the system. They're not actually asylees. And it's our own government that has coached them and given them the tools they need to get into this country illegally.
Yeah. And I see a lot of talking heads also saying that, like, basically if they haven't reoffended, then we need to find ways to basically just, like an amnesty. We sort of have to, I mean, they don't put it that way, but they frame it as if every illegal immigrant that hasn't committed another crime since they've been here should just be made legal.
No,
which is kind of outrageous,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And back to this questioner that it's kind of ridiculous. Another reason why he's no good is that, so first, as you said, he tries to basically make out it's not a crime to come here. She sort of slaps him down on that, says it's a federal crime. And then he switches to goes, oh, well, so you're not prioritizing the repeat offenders? It's like, no, why would...
The rest of the people,
you think that, like
everybody else that you get, we're going after the violent criminals, but guess what? If we wrap up a bunch of other people, that's just whipped cream and cherries on the top. So don't worry about it. They're getting out of the country too. Well, Trump said it all. Yeah, we're going to prioritize and push our primary resources toward the worst ones, the worst first policies, what the actual policy is kind of being nicknamed. But guess what? Everybody's going, and if you happen to be around these turds, well, guess what? You're going out of the country with the turds too. It's just part of it.
Yeah, and you think ideally they all should be going, but it's just a resource issue, and it's difficult logistically to do it all. But surely, in theory, it's like they've broken the law, so everyone should go. But a lot of people see it differently.
What we're saying is, we're saying, hey, you know what? If you're here illegally, we're getting you out. Now we're putting our resources toward the worst among you. But it would be a really poor use of resources if I had this guy in custody and he wasn't quote unquote a violent criminal or had an additional record, and I just let him go only to come back and arrest him later. That's a terrible use of resources, right? I mean, but that's what the Democrats expect.
Yeah. Anyway, back to her, shall we?
Yep.
Criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table.
Understood. Then let me ask you a separate question about the confusion that still exists across the country right now as it relates to the freeze or the pause as it's described. President Trump, of course, ran one of the key policy items was that he was going to lower prices, lower the cost of everything from groceries, as he often said. But in many of the cases, it would seem that some of these moves could raise prices for real Americans on everything from low-income heating, that program, child care programs. Will nothing that the president's doing here in terms of the freeze in these programs raise prices on ordinary Americans?
What particular actions are you referring to that
I'm
would...
referring to LHEAP right now. That's the low-income heating program, for example. We can talk about... There's no clarity, so I could refer to a lot of them. We don't know what they are specifically. Can you tell us that LHEAP, that LIHEAP is not one of those affected?
So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify.
Well,
What I can tell you
just to be
is
clear,
that
since you guys haven't identified, let's do it together just for Americans at home. Medicaid, is that affected?
I gave you a list of examples: Social Security, Medicare, welfare benefits, food stamps that will not be impacted by this federal pause. I can get you the full list after this briefing from the Office of Management and Budget. But I do want to address the cost cutting because that's certainly very important and cutting the cost of living in this country. President Trump has taken historic action over the past week to do that. He actually signed a memorandum to deliver emergency price relief for American families, which took a number of actions. I can walk you through those. He also repealed many onerous Biden administration regulations. We know over the past 4 years, American households has been essentially taxed $55,000 in regulations from the previous administration. President Trump, with the swipe of his pen, rescinded those, which will ultimately put more money back in the pockets of the American people. So deregulation is a big deal. And then when it comes to energy, I mean, the president signed an executive order to declare a national energy emergency here at home, which is going to make America energy dominant. We know that energy is one of the #1 drivers of inflation. And so that's why the president wants to increase our energy supply to bring down costs for Americans. The Trump energy boom is incoming, and Americans can expect that.
Please share that out. Thank you.
Caroline, I think some of the confusion I think may be here with this pause on federal funding. You've made it clear you're not stopping funds that go directly to individuals, but there certainly are lots of organizations that receive funding and then may pass along a benefit. Meals on Wheels, for one. They provide meals for over 2.2 million seniors. What is the president's message to Americans out there, many of whom supported him and voted for him, who are concerned that this is going to impact them directly, even if, as you said, the funding isn't coming directly to their wallet?
I have now been asked and answered this question 4 times. To individuals at home who receive direct assistance from the federal government, you will not be impacted by this federal freeze. In fact, OMB just sent out a memo to Capitol Hill with Q&A to clarify some of the questions and the answers that all of you are asking me right now. Again, direct assistance will not be impacted. I've been asked and answered about this OMB memo. There's many other topics of the day. Jackie Heinrich.
Direct assistance, Caroline, if it's going to another organization and then trickling down.
Direct assistance that is in the hands of the American people will not be impacted. Again, as I said to Peter, we will continue to provide that list as it comes to fruition. But OMB right now is focused on analyzing the federal government's spending, which is exactly what the American people elected President Trump to do.
And one question on immigration, Caroline, on immigration. Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
You made a point that the worst first. They all have a criminal record?
And welcome to the briefing
If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal. Yes.
Thank you. On stripping security details for figures like John
Bolton. The lady
they
on
are
the left,
criminal.
she just has to
yes,
resign.
Thank you. On stripping security details for figures like John Bolton, Pompeo, Brian Hook, Senator Tom Cotton said that he's seen the intelligence and the threat from Iran is real for anyone who played a role in the Soleimani strike. He voiced concern it wouldn't just impact those individuals, but potentially their family, innocent bystanders.
Yeah. I want to talk, like, first of all, I guess I was not aware that all of these cabinet members continue on with extensive security details for God knows how long. I have actually worked on the vehicles of Pompeo and many other secretaries of states, by the way, of worked on doing security, enhancing security for Pompeo's vehicles, specifically his motorcade. But I didn't realize that guys like freaking Fauci and all these other folks had federally funded security details. Like, for how long, and is this indefinite? And like, when did this start? Because this was not always a thing. And I don't understand it. Like, it's absolutely insane that somebody like Fauci, who is a multi-millionaire many times over, same thing with Pompeo, that we are paying for their security detail. It's absolutely ludicrous. And I'm glad that Trump is doing this. I get it if you're a president or vice president. The rest of you, F off. Like, go do something else and pay for your own security. Or, I don't know, carry a gun and defend yourself and your family. How about that? Like the rest of us Americans that have to do it every single day, as opposed to getting some crazy security detail like anybody cares about you to begin with. Because we don't. Nobody does. All right.
I don't know if you saw this. Trump was asked about these people. And he basically said, look, they all made a lot of money. They can get their own security if they want. Something along those lines.
Play it. It's good, though.
Yeah. Mr. President, the security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, and I'm wondering...
Okay, the question we're coming from was more related to the Iran-related people like Bolton and Pompeo or whatever, but same thing still applies with Fauci.
Terminated last night, and I'm wondering if you have any comment on that.
About what?
The security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, sir. Do you have a comment?
No, I think, when you work for government, at some point your security detail comes off. And, you can't have them forever. So I think it's very standard. If it would be for somebody else, you wouldn't be asking the question. The question is very fair. But, you work for government. We took some off other people, too. But you can't have a security detail for the rest of your life because you work for government. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Would you feel partially responsible if something were to happen to, say, Dr. Fauci
No.
or John Bolton?
No.
No.
They all made a lot of money. They can hire their own security, too. All the people you're talking about, they can go out. I can give them some good numbers of very good security people. They can hire their own security. They all made a lot of money. Fauci made a lot of money.
Oh, I love that. Fauci made a lot of money.
So if they, felt that strongly, I think that certainly I would not take responsibility.
North Carolina is a state that relies.
So, by the way, folks, Fauci's net worth is over like $12-13 million. So, number one, he was receiving a salary of over $400-something thousand. So here's our article I'm reading. Former White House medical advisor Anthony Fauci and his wife had a net worth of over $11 million before he left his government post this past December. CEO of Open Books, Adam, whatever, is a long, stupid name. So it was even sharper rise than at the peak. So at the end of 2021, certainly within the pandemic, the Fauci net worth approached $12.6 million, up from $7.6 million. So it was a sharp $5 million increase in their household net worth during the pandemic. He said, and again, this guy is worth well over $10 million. He makes more than the president, who is still only making $400,000 per year. It's insane that we would pay for his security. Absolutely insane. I don't understand the decision makers in any of this stuff. They're a bunch of freaking 4-year-olds can make better decisions than some of these people.
Yeah, and he gets a pardon on top of all that. Because he obviously hasn't done anything wrong, but we better pardon him anyway.
100%. Good God.
Friends, anyone who's near them when they're out in public. Is the president open to reconsidering his decision?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday, and he was firm in his decision despite some of the comments that you had referenced. And he's made it very clear that he does not believe American taxpayers should fund security details for individuals who have served in the government for the rest of their lives. And there's nothing stopping these individuals that you mentioned from obtaining private security. That's where the president stands on it. I have no updates on that.
Is there any concern that this decision might jeopardize the administration's ability to hire the best advisors for these kinds of positions in the future?
No, in fact, I've talked to the presidential personnel office, who has told me directly that there is such an influx of resumes for this administration that it's incredibly overwhelming. There is no lack of talent for the Trump administration.
Reagan, would he take any responsibility if anything happened to these people? Would he feel at all that his decision was a factor in that?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. I defer you to his comments. Reagan, since you're in the back row, I hear you. The back row hasn't gotten much attention in the last 4 years, so I'm happy to answer your question.
I can project. Does the president intend to permanently cut off funding to NGOs that are bringing illegal foreign nationals to the country, such as Catholic Charities?
I am actually quite certain that the president signed an executive order that did just that, and I can point you to that.
One more, Caroline. President Trump issued an executive order on increased vetting for refugees and visa applications. Part of that order was considering an outright ban for countries that have deficient screening processes. Has the president considered yet which countries might fall into this category, or countries like Afghanistan or Syria under consideration for a full ban?
Yeah, so the president signed an executive order to streamline the vetting for visa applicants and for illegal immigrants in this country who are coming, of course, from other nations. It also directed the Secretary of State to review the process and make sure that other countries around the world are being completely transparent with our nation and the individuals that they are sending here. And so the Secretary of State has been directed to report back to the president.
Just on the idea of vetting, I was reminded of this clip you might have seen from J.D. Vance. Did you see this one? He was asked about the vetting.
So. No.
It's pretty good.
My primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people are
not good.
I think she's asking about people from Afghanistan that might have helped America, that might be coming over or something. But yeah, he's saying, like, yeah, the vetting isn't good enough.
These people are vetted. Good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who played a terrorist attack at Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Boom. So I mean, I don't know what I make of Vance, actually. I'll see how he goes. But, I mean, he's pretty good sometimes with that kind of stuff. Yeah, back to the briefing.
The president. I haven't seen that report yet. We've only been here for a few days.
One, on the freeze in federal funding, who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And on what happened on Friday night, the administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that would...
Yeah, this just brings me back to one of the things I think we're going to see going forward. Now that Biden has done this blanket pardon of his entire cabinet, himself, his family, his staff, and everybody else that was ever involved in anything controversial and quite frankly, most likely illegal, from COVID to every other category of problems that the Biden administration faced and then covered up with a pardon. I think going forward, basically they've set a precedent because I mean, honestly, since Biden did this, we know that when Trump gets out of office, we haven't even talked about, right now they're talking about, well, where does he get this authority? This is illegal. That's what the implication here is. But going forward, I think this is just going to be a standard, and it's a bad standard to have. It's obviously a bad standard to go after legitimate. I mean, everything that they did to Trump prior to him getting, after he got out of office, even while he was in office, has set a precedent that I just think that's what we're going to start seeing at the end of every presidency, or at the end of every term, depending on, if they're 1 or 2 term president. But it's a really bad precedent that I think is going to have, because we know at this point, I would want Trump to do that, because we know that as soon as Trump gets out of office, they're going to go after him, his entire cabinet, everything that they did. We have more of Trump's cabinets and other folks, his advisors, lawyers, and everything else that were prosecuted unjustly, and of course he himself. So I don't know. We're in a bad state on the legal front on that.
I just quickly looked up the Wikipedia of the pardons or whatever. It's got Biden there with 8,000. I haven't really looked into it. It says there apparently 6,000 related, which is weird. Possibly pardoned for marijuana possession. What's the possibly? Are we not sure? So Trump's got a few there too, but mostly for the January 6th, which is all good, because that was, that was ridiculous in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the particular ones that Biden did with the Fauci, and then basically everyone that was investigating Trump. Was it Jack Miller, one of the prosecutors or something, and a lot of his team and all the people that work for them on all the different lawfare against Trump? I'm pretty sure they all got pardoned.
They did, yeah.
And, so on the one hand, Biden's basically saying, Biden's not saying much. He's not really in charge of too many things. But I guess he's trying to imply that these people haven't done anything wrong, yet the American system is so bad and doesn't have any checks whatsoever. He's saying Donald Trump would somehow be able to put completely innocent people in jail.
Well,
with no evidence.
I mean, it's an admission of what they did. They know what they can do with the federal government and with the DOJ. And now they're afraid. And unfortunately, we know that most of those prosecutions, a large majority of them, were either completely unfounded and were just trumped up, no pun intended, or they were, these process charges and things like that have never been prosecuted before. Like those types of charges against an administration have never been brought before. And that's what, I mean, at the end of the day, look, the federal government's coming after you. They can find 50 things. We've talked about this before. Like, I think there's a book where it's like, it's called like 4 felonies a day or something like that. Like, you can be charged with a felony by the federal government at any time they decide to, and that's just the legal system that we have. Yeah, Biden,
and even just the look of pardoning his son. I mean, look. That's a bad thing. It's kind of corrupt.
All those things.
That's all corrupt. I think that's a bit. Look, this may be a bit funny, but like, imagine if I had a son and I could get him out of jail with a pardon. I might do it. It's very corrupt, but I don't think that's the worst.
Out of power. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
I would probably do the same thing. Like, F you guys, pardon my son. Screw you. What you gonna do? I'm out, bro. Now. Metal Sears talking about the JFK document. So the executive order that he signed says they have to be reviewed and released within 45 days. So I think we're going to see those in the next 40 days or so, hopefully. Yeah. And look, I'm also very skeptical of what is going to be actually released, or I'm even skeptical on those, like what Trump has actually been shown, or it'd be, if there were people involved in the CIA or whatever other agency that were involved in a criminal way, I think it'd be very easy to replace those documents or to pull documents that had any real, that would be illuminating in any way to what really happened. So I don't know. You can take that for what it's worth. I don't expect to see a lot of groundbreaking stuff in there, but maybe we will. Maybe I'll be wrong. It's happened once or twice.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he said he was going to do that last time, but apparently it was Mike Pompeo that convinced him to, keep things hidden for national security interests. So I'm always wondering what that could possibly be, considering how old it is. People involved probably aren't alive anymore. I don't understand. Unless there's something juicy there, why are they covering it up?
I think that has to be the ultimately what you have to conclude, right? I mean, that there's something embarrassing or illegal that the government did that is going to, diminish what little faith we have in the government left. So, I mean, just the fact that they've covered it up for as long as they had is almost an admission to something. I don't know what happened. It's all been said before what we all think, but it's all conjecture until we see some proof. And again, I like when they release these things, I'm not sure that I'm going to believe what I'm looking at anyhow, at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I remember at the time, just, a week ago, whenever it was, a couple of days ago, when the story came out about Trump declassifying these files, there was a video going around on the internet, and they're like, oh, here we go. Here's a new video that we have. I don't think it was a new video. I'm not too sure. Apparently it was people trying to say it showed the driver turning around and shooting him. Couldn't really see it. I don't really buy that one. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was released. It was presented on the internet as something related to these files being released. But I don't think that's the case, right? I don't think any new videos have been released under this Trump executive order. So there'll be things on the internet probably not even related to what gets released. And then what does get released, yeah, how do we trust that either? But, it's exciting. Hopefully there's something in there.
Yeah. I don't know. Better than nothing. It'll definitely run it'll fill a couple of news cycles. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I probably got to get running in a couple of minutes. I don't know if we might just close out touching on a couple other things that Trump's done. Like, so he did the in Taiwan. He
say Taiwan?
Yeah,
is that how you guys say
Taiwan.
It?
Yeah. No, we say Taiwan. I don't know where that came from. But anyway, these things happen. I'm not. Don't enjoy them too much when I don't get things perfect. All right, but it'll happen sometimes. But yeah, Taiwan, sanctions and tariffs and all that kind of stuff. It seems like he's trying to get the semiconductors to be built in America, which would be amazing just for the American, manufacturing and all that in of itself. But then on top of that,
that's a point of national security as far as I'm concerned. Like, why aren't we building these things in the U.S. to begin with?
Yeah. And it ties in with China and Taiwan because there's obviously some tension there. And America keeps saying, if China tries to get Taiwan back, we might intervene, all these kind of things. And in my opinion, that Taiwan's in China's sphere of influence, regardless of what you think of all that. It's like, that's not really for America. I mean, if America's going to be doing stuff in Panama and talking about Greenland and, the Monroe Doctrine and kind of stuff, you can't really complain too much about the South China Sea and Taiwan. But the only argument against that, the only argument mainly that for America intervening if China takes back Taiwan is that, well, what are we going to do with the semiconductors? We need the semiconductors, so we have to go to war to keep Taiwan free, which is kind of ridiculous. So I'm hoping that Trump's a part of this is to take that possibility of war off the table. Because if China does try to take Taiwan back, people can't go, oh, we have to do something. How will we get our semiconductors? Well, let's start building them in America, and that won't be an option. And we can just say, look, we're not happy about the Taiwan thing, but let's not go to World War III with China over Taiwan, shall we?
Well, and this goes back to Trump's economic diplomacy, right? Like, almost everything with China could be solved through economics. And the same thing, literally going back to, I don't care what we were talking about, whether we're talking about currently with Iran or any other country. Like, we have enough ability economically to crush all these countries, either slow or fast. And at the end of the day, if we suddenly reduced imports, even if it raised the cost of what we had here in this country, I think I would rather pay significantly more for products made here in the United States and not have to send tens of thousands of our kids, sons, brothers, daughters to war and die, and also have the self-reliance of everything being built here in the United States. Like, we need to get back to that. And yeah, it would be there'd be some economic pain there until we can get production back up here in the United States. Like, we, at one point, the United States was China. Like, we started the Industrial Revolution. We were creating more goods. That's how we became the superpower that we are. And we still have that ability, but we farmed everything out. And now we don't produce steel in America. We don't produce anything here anymore. Like, almost everything is farmed out. If like shit actually hit the fan, we had World War III really kick off, that would be a sustained war like we're talking about against China or Russia or Iran or all three of the above, and then many other countries that would jump in with them. Like, we'd be in some real issues. Like, we wouldn't be able to produce electronics. We wouldn't have the steel to produce cars. We wouldn't have steel to produce airplanes and many other things that we literally, if we started today, it would probably be decades before we'd have that production ability, even available to us. So yeah, I think we need to figure out, and if there's going to be somebody that's going to do it, Trump knows how to pull the levers that we have, because we have a lot of them and we just don't ever use them. And it just is much more expedient to throw our own children at problems that are overseas and just, let them be sacrificed at the altar of the military industrial complex. That's what it's coming down to. All right, Chris, you need to get out of here.
Yeah. So I probably should go. The only other thing I was going to mention was the
you need to leave.
foreign aid. Hey,
yeah.
You taking shots? I guess I didn't hear him.
No,
that's fine. I don't need to. Sorry, bear with me. Just hit my ear and something started playing. But yeah, I was just going to comment on the foreign aid freeze. Don't quote me on this, but I think he's frozen all foreign aid except for Israel and Egypt. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, I think
that's how it works.
I had an article pulled up that I was going to bring that up.
Which I find kind of interesting. I would have preferred a complete blanket ban, but I guess there's a lot going on with Israel and the hostage deal, and Trump commented that he wants.
Yeah, that's because you're anti-Semitic. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's what they say about anyone really. I'm not a big fan of Israel, and that's sort of the charge that gets thrown around.
I know.
But really, because the Egypt thing would be related to Israel, I imagine, because Trump wants Egypt and Jordan, was it, maybe, and some other countries to take the people of Gaza.
Yeah,
that's just a little bit one-sided. And I imagine Egypt might be getting the money. I think a lot of the reason why Egypt gets so much money, they were basically paid off to be friends with Israel. Because they were at war before, decades ago, and they've been at peace ever since. Egypt gets heaps of aid, so does Israel. And I imagine maybe that was an incentive. Egypt, take these people from Gaza. But Egypt basically sees that as ethnic cleansing. Israel wants to get rid of the Palestinians out of the land, and we don't want to participate in that or whatever. But yeah, that's just another side story. But I just want to quickly mention foreign aid's been banned everywhere except for Israel and Egypt, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, probably related to the whole hostage negotiations that's going on between Israel and Hamas at the moment. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. Probably too much to get into now, but that's going to be an interesting one in the future. I don't see that ending anytime soon, despite the ceasefire and phase 1 at the moment. I think they'll be back at war soon.
I guess time will tell with that. But I do, the point here is what I think the point with not ending funding or pausing funding to Israel is, they are in the middle of a war. And I do think that if suddenly we cut funding to Israel, it would reignite something within Hamas and the other terrorist organizations, and Iran, by the way, within there. So I think that's makes sense. It's just, I think that just makes sense, because if suddenly we pulled funding from them, it would look like there's some sort of rift between us and Israel. And I just think that us backing Israel, whether you support Israel or not, I think that's still a good strategy to end that war there. Because if we suddenly make any sort of movements that indicate that we're not backing Israel, I do think we're going to see this war extended even further. So I think that makes perfect sense. whether you disagree with Israel or not. Look, I know, and I do want to distinguish on that. I know, Chris and I have talked a little bit about, he's definitely more critical of Israel than I am, but it's okay to criticize or to have a negative view of Israel without having a negative view. Like anti-Semitism and criticizing the country and or government of Israel and their policies within the Middle East is very different than being anti-Semitic. And I think that needs to be put on the table as well. And I know I joke about that a little bit, but some people actually believe that, or they conflate the two, right? 100%.
I think that's a good point, because regardless of where you side on that issue and what you think about mainly the left that oppose Israel's war, most of them, whether they're naive or whatever, they're motivated by seeing dead children and people dying and having a bleeding heart. A lot of them. And to say that, they just hate Jewish people, that's not accurate. There is anti-Semitism across the world. Well, it's probably rising, but most people that criticize Israel.
Yeah, and I'm not going to defend anti-Semitism, and I don't want to come across like that. But I also think that gets a little conflated within some of these people's minds. Like, some of these leftists, some of them are absolutely crazy and absolutely completely anti-Semitic, and I do think they're like, there's definitely factions within the left that are extremely anti-Semitic, has nothing to do with necessarily Israel as a country, see this as an opportunity to recruit more, to push more anti-Semitic things and ideologies and recruit and get support and all those things. But I also think that there's just some people that aren't smart enough, aren't knowledgeable enough, or aren't mature enough to separate, like, hey, I don't like Israel and what they're doing, so that also means I hate Jews. And there are people that fall in that category, and I don't, I think people need to understand that, and there's definitely degrees that are worth, and that whole thing that are worth making some separations and clarifying a little bit. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, listen. I'm in West Virginia. I got the black lung. Somebody mentioned it earlier about Tuesdays and Thursdays. This podcast, we are scheduling it for Mondays at 8:00 and Thursdays at 8:00. I was just getting back into town, and Chris had some other things going on, so we decided to do it today as opposed to Monday. But we should be able to get on a fairly good schedule. But make sure you hit like, subscribe, and then also that bell icon button, and please select all, so that when we do change up the schedule a little bit, or we decided to have a podcast because of some current event and we want to talk about it and bring information to you on that, you'll be notified. So make sure you hit that select all button on the bell notification. That will help us and it will help you, and make sure that you never miss an episode, and you can jump in on the conversation as well. What else you got for us, Chris, before we say tally ho? You and I do need to talk. I'll shoot you a message. I was hoping to get on here a little early, but you were not punctual.
Yeah, well,
that's all right.
We didn't need to air the dirty laundry. We could have. You could have let people know I was here on time with the prep. They'll have to know.
Well,
we're all about transparency on the show. Is that it?
You were late because you were prepping so hard. That's what was going
exactly.
On. I get it. I
exactly
get it.
What was.
You were locked in. Completely lost track of time. All right, folks. Listen, we really appreciate you watching. Please stay tuned. Join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Summer night, a minimum will be on. We'll see if we got Chris or Jason or any of the other suspects on here. But we're going to be talking about SHOT Show. I got a lot more videos coming. I got about probably 5 or 6 different videos back there that I'm still editing that I'll be releasing about great releases, great new things coming for Paramount, and teaming up with new products, new companies that we'll be releasing this year. So, but anyways, until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.